Welcome to the DevReady podcast. Today I've got Steve Sandor on an episode of DevReady podcast. Welcome, Steve. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, Anthony. Yeah, it's great. Thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, not a problem. It's a pleasure to have you on. What I'll do, I'll let you introduce yourself, and that way I don't make any mistakes in your background or anything else that you've been doing.
Yeah, thanks. I've got a long history, and it's been diverse. So, started off as a electrician, ran my own business as a 22-year-old. Was taken to the cleaners by a developer, which was a great lesson, as a young person, trusting people. Got into sales in the electrical wholesale industry, had some fantastic mentors who taught me around building quality relationships with people. I naturally jumped ship from that electrical world into financial services, as you could back in the in the 80s, and we wonder why we have a royal commission into financing. And I spent 15 years predominantly working for large corporates, financial services organisations. Built up a really good reputation amongst the financial planning and risk writer business. Got bought out by the company I was working for. Got bought out by another organisation. I started my own financial services business. Almost became a software developer because there was no software available to do the things that I was trying to do. So I was really at the bleeding edge of technology. Lived through the internet, the start of the internet, SEO and all of those sorts of things. Never really got into the tech side, but understand the mechanics of it. Sold my business and ended up working with a client in Papua New Guinea as a change manager and working within a human resource business. And helped him change his business, and then developed a series of leadership and management programs, excuse me, in PNG, in Papua New Guinea. And then I came back to Australia in late 2019. Perfect timing, because I was going to start my business here in Australia, and then the pandemic hit. And it was actually perfect timing, because it gave me time to sit and reflect about what it was that I wanted to, who I wanted to serve and how I wanted to do that. So that's the sort of history. My biggest learning was my biggest mistake. And so as a 32-year-old, I was given the job as change manager for a very large institution. It was the job of your dreams. The money that I was being paid at that time would make your eyes water today. And I had the big car, the expense account, travel, nationally, internationally. The problem was that I had no idea what I was doing. Right, so I talked myself into this job, and when I got in there, I had pretty much disaffected myself from everybody in the organisation within a relatively short period of time. To the point where my mentor, who was in Hong Kong, said, "Steve, you need to get on a plane and come up here because something's not working." And I, hubris of youth, went, "No, I've got this. So 12 months later, I was sacked. But gave me an opportunity to go overseas. Financially, I was okay, but I went overseas and spent 12 months. Just reading all the classics. I came back and got a job, and from that, they call it emotional intelligence now, but emotional awareness. That was probably the start of that, which has served me. That moment when you go, "Wow, that was really bad." Without that, I don't think I'd be the person I am today. I'd be a person today, but not this person.
Yeah, it's those lessons that we go through where you've got a decision where do you take the right lesson away from it and the learning, which seems like you have, or do you then turn it on other people and say, "All right, that wasn't my problem," and then just start repeating a cycle?
At the time, I turned it on everybody else.
Okay.
I didn't have that maturity in business, because when you're 32 and everybody's telling you that you're great, you start to believe that. and so the humility is the other side of hubris, right? So when when you learn humility, it gives you the confidence to be able to act in a different way. So you don't need to be the bravado. You don't need to feed your ego with all of this stuff that you feel is necessary. What you actually start to understand is that the character of yourself and how that impacts other people, and it's how you then apply that, and that took me time. Right? Some people do this. Some people do this. They're just naturals at it. It took me a lot of time for it to embed into my DNA, and now it's like I can't shift it out of my DNA.
Yeah, I think it is a long learning for people. It's having that empathy as well, and just understanding the other people's situation or how you're coming across to them. So yeah, it's not a simple thing.
And empathy is actually the key. And I'm sure we'll get into the conversation around, using this as in starting up a business or managing a business. But, I always talk about running a business is a bit like being a parent. You love your children, in the business context. Although we're changing the narrative, and sort of love is starting to become a little bit more accepted in the boardrooms of businesses. But if you said to someone, "I love you," you probably end up in the courts with HR on your back. So we care for people, right? So we care for people, and if you genuinely care for people and you take the time to listen. I say 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them in that proportion. Be interested, not interesting, and then when you engage with people and you are, I don't like the word vulnerable, because vulnerable has a connotation of fear. So if I'm vulnerable, if I'm in a vulnerable domestic violence situation, psychologically we think of vulnerability as danger. So I like to talk about, transparent or open. So when you are transparent and open with people, then they see that, they sense that, they feel safe because you've opened up. They then start to open up to you. And then you can have this engagement, which is this open and honest communication. And then when, as a manager, right? So I'm putting it in the context of a manager. When you have a difficult conversation, and every business owner, every manager, every employee at some point in time will have a difficult conversation with someone. And if this is the first time you have that conversation with that person, then it's always going to be a defensive, right? It's always going to be about negotiation. But if you've built up a relationship with that person and you know that this behavior that they're demonstrating is unusual, it's not how they behave, it's not how they act, then you can ask them that question. Look, this is, I don't understand this behavior that you're, over the last couple of weeks. It's unusual. What's going on? How can I support you? Yeah. And then that person feels safe in that environment to tell you, I've got financial problems, or I've got problems at home, or I'm not enjoying my job, or, I'd like, I'm not getting paid enough, or whatever it is, right? And then you can have that honest conversation. And if it's about behaviour, if it's got, they're just being nasty, or they're being, they're just not being a nice person, you can call that out. You can say, I'm not proud of the situation that, we value you, but in this particular situation, I just can't accept this behaviour. So without that connection, that's going to come across as aggressive.
Yeah, it's how you're saying it, and like that relationship you have with the person, and then with the business as well, and how you're feeling on that day, and you just have to learn how to put your feelings aside, make sure you're saying it the right way, the connection's there. If it's not there, preface it and have enough context to let them understand, all right, these are the values that we respect in the business, this is what we're trying to achieve, this is the culture we're following. you're not aligning to that. Not my opinion, it's just what's happening.
Yep, yep.
And you have to take your opinion out of it, because that's when people feel attacked, when there's an opinion there.
Yeah.
If you're prefacing it with those facts, effectively, it's going to make it a lot simpler and easier to have that conversation.
Yeah. We call it content context. So everybody has an opinion, right? And everybody's opinion is right because it's your opinion. Right, it's right to you, right? Because that,
that's what you believe.
That's what you believe, right? So it's the context in which you've created. Now, maybe you've been in an echo chamber, and you haven't been able to expand on your beliefs, right? So when I went to Papua New Guinea, I believed that I had a fairly open and understanding relationship of different cultures, because I come from a family that emigrated from Hungary post-war. Both my parents are Hungarian, refugees. My father was a lawyer, couldn't practice law in Australia because of the language, but he could speak 3 languages, right? Russian, German, Hungarian, and he was learning English. And we would go into shops, and the Australian shopkeeper would be shouting at my father, "You bloody refo, why can't you speak English?" And Dad would just bite his tongue, and he would reply in 3 languages.
Yep.
And they go, "What are you talking about?" "Well, I just replied in Russian, Hungarian, and German. Which one didn't you understand?" Right? So, but so when I went to Papua New Guinea, I thought, I'm pretty open, but I'm a privileged white person. What I learnt to appreciate was the difficulties that people in third world countries have when they go home to a village, etc. So that gave me a lot of empathy. And I had to change my behaviour to be able to adapt to the circumstances that were there, right? And so when you open up your belief systems, and you don't have to change your beliefs, but when you are exposed to those beliefs, you have a different view of how you can communicate and negotiate with people. So it's powerful.
It's almost like if you've got your views in the bubble, just expanding the size of that bubble a bit and just seeing a little bit further, really.
Yeah.
A simple way of explaining it.
So a lot of it is around fear, right? People are frightened that, everything that I've done to this point in my life has been useful, right? Served me. Going outside of my comfort zone, right, is now scary. So I tend not to do that, because I'm trying to, maintain safe. It's the reptilian brain in us is saying, don't do that. That's bad. Don't do it. Whereas we live in this society today where there aren't saber-toothed tigers out the front door trying to eat us. So, we have to think differently. Our mindset needs to change. So that's that whole concept of, if you expose yourself to other thinking, generationally, it's really interesting at the moment, because I come from the boomer generation, and I've got kids who are millennials.
Yep.
And I'm learning a lot from them because of their view of the world. It's not my view of the world, but it is their view of the world. And I'm going, just as an aside, I always love how my generation, or the parents of the millennials, always complain about the millennials, right? As they want things instantly. There's this this immediate gratification. I go, you brought these kids up, right? You were the ones that created the atmosphere for them to, be the best that you can be, and everybody gets a medal and all the rest of it, because, all of that. I go, well, they didn't think of that. You created. So that's just as an aside. I think it's funny. So if you expose yourselves to these other thinkings, it doesn't mean that you change the way that you think, but you are exposed to different ways of thinking, and then the possibilities. Then, who knows?
Yeah, having different opinions, different people come in and have their experiences help influence your decisions or your experiences is a great thing to do. And we do that internally with our business. There's lots of people there with different experience, different ideas. You have to use all of them. Just because you're running the business, or the owner, or in a position of management and can make the shots, doesn't mean what you believe is the right way to do something.
Yeah, I often hear my contemporaries say to business owners, "You need to let go of control," right? And I go, "Don't agree. Don't agree. You're the boss. You're the head of the family, if you like. So you actually need to be in control. You need to have all the mechanisms in place, the dashboard, the business dashboard that tells you what's happening. So you're driving, to mix my analogies, right? So or metaphors. You're driving a car and you've got a dashboard in front of you, so you know how fast you're going. You can be less controlling. You need to be in control, but you can be less controlling. So that requires you to be trusting and delegating authority to people. And that's scary because, no one can ever do it as well as you. So now you're giving away that, right?
Yeah.
So I
That's
talk
a
about
hard thing to learn.
Yeah. So I talk about, flexible rigidity or rigid flexibility, right? So what you do is you set the boundaries and the playpen or the sandpit for people to operate in, and you put some structure around that. So, it might be, and everybody rolls their eyes when I say this, right? So job descriptions. It doesn't have to be a 5-page document. It can be a simple one-pager that says, this is your job, this is what I'm expecting from you, here's the accountability, here's the decisions that you make, and you don't need to refer those to me. But as the owner of the business, you need to be able to monitor what's being done. Right, and that might be a daily conversation, it might be a weekly meeting, it might be the information coming from your dashboard that's telling you that these decisions are made. But don't meddle. Allow them to make the mistakes, because from those mistakes, your staff will have their own aha moment. They'll figure it out, and when they come to you for an answer that they've meant to have, you don't give them the answer. What we call is coaching. So you then ask lots and lots and lots and lots of questions, and you get them to figure the problem out for themselves. So one of the tricks that I used to, it's not a trick, it's just a process, is like, I say, well, don't come to me. Have you read the 1 Minute Manager Met the Monkey? Right? No. Here's the book. Go read it. Right? Brilliant book. It basically tells you that says the monkey is your problem, not mine. You're coming into my office. You're getting your monkey to jump onto my back so that I'll solve your problem. Monkey belongs to you, right? So come in with a problem. What are the 2 solutions that you've thought of? And let's have a conversation. You don't have 2 solutions? Go away. Think about 2 solutions. Come back to me, right? Now, they may be the stupidest things you've ever heard. Right? But they also may be stupid from your mind, thinking that, I would never have done that. But when you, as the manager, go, I've never thought about it like that, it's a different perspective. Then the 2 of you can try and work out a solution you help that person work out which one is the best solution. And if it's not going to work, then you keep going. Well, that's probably not going to work, but what if we did it? What's another way of doing it? So there's a whole methodology around managing that, is that sort of the coach, the consultant, the teacher, the trainer, the facilitator, all of those things. And managers are the same person, but functioning differently, sometimes in one conversation. So sometimes you're the mentor, sometimes you're the coach, sometimes you're the consultant, all in the one conversation.
Yeah, it just depends how far along you get.
Does your head in sometimes, right?
Yeah, I can imagine. It's knowing how to position yourself and not react, but respond the right way and lead the conversation, probably in the path where you're taking the person down the right way to realize the steps they need to realize that they have to take.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't even know what those steps are. So in those situations, what I do see, and I've been guilty of it myself, is that you believe that you have to have all of the answers. This is particularly difficult for men, right? Because we love to,
I can relate.
We love to solve problems, right? And our partners, our wives, go, I don't want you to fix the problem. I'm just telling you how my day was, right? And so, but we just jump straight into fix it mode. And so as a manager, particularly, that's what we are expected. You know, we're expected to have, I'm the owner of the business, or I'm the manager, I'm expected to know the answer. And so there's the ego. You know, ego pops up and says, you need that. And so what you do is you then puff your chest out. You know, here's the answer, right? Aren't I brilliant? Well, the problem with that is now it's your answer, right? If it doesn't work, it's on you.
Your fault.
It's your fault. So it's like, oh, well, I don't know the answer. I've never experienced that. I've never had that situation, or I've had something similar, but not exactly the same. So it's like, okay, well, together, let's work this out, right? So this is, again, this transparency. I don't have the answer. I'm facilitating a conversation now with one or more people, and it's how you frame it. Look, I don't have the answer. We probably don't have time. We're not going to come up with a solution. What's the urgency of this? Does it have to be, is there a client waiting out the front, waiting for an answer? Or do we have a couple of days, or is this just a thought bubble? So you need to, again, have that context, frame that up, and then go, look, right at the moment, I don't think we need to solve this. Let's set some time aside. We can both think about it. We can come back. Or, no, look, there's a decision that needs to be made. I'm the boss. I'm going to have to make this decision here. It's on me. If it doesn't work, it's not on you, right? And you take the, you take the accountability of that, and, hope you got it right. And knowing that, probably 50% of the time you don't get it right.
Yeah, you're never going to know what the right answer is. No. But like I said at the start, as long as you're learning those lessons along the way, every time you do that, you're then course correcting into the right direction.
Yeah,
and that's the ideal.
And small business owners particularly, because you've got so much on your plate, so the organizational design, my advice to every business owner is get your organizational design sorted. The owner of IBM, he had his organizational design completed before he actually went to market with anything. And the value of doing that is that what you can do is you can start to figure out where you're spending or need to spend your time. So marketing, sales, operations, IT, risk management, legal, finance, all of those things. So, who's responsible in the beginning? You're in every spot, right? Your hat is sitting in every. So then you can start to go, okay, well, today I'm focusing on marketing, or I'm focusing on sales, or I'm doing, my BAS or whatever it is, right? So you've got that. But we put so much pressure on ourselves, and we beat ourselves up continually because of the fact that we're probably not getting as far as we thought we would get at this point in time, right? Mm-hmm. One of the best books I've read is The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan and Professor Nick somebody. Okay. And basically it's all about context. So the thought is that, the horizon is where our objective is. But if you think about it, you'll actually never arrive at the horizon. It's impossible, right? It's because the horizon is always the horizon.
Yeah, it always keeps moving.
It's moving, right? So that's the goal. That's that's the direction that you're heading. So when you get to a point, instead of looking forward, look back. Look back to how far you've come in that period of time. And most times you're surprised of how far you've progressed from from a point. And that gives you satisfaction. Right, so then you go, oh, okay, we're not doing that bad. Yeah, sure, we didn't achieve the goal that we wanted to, but very rarely a business plan's achieved, right? So you write a business, it's an objective, right? It's a goal that you're going to get to, but it depends on how much effort, knowledge, capacity, capability you have to whether you achieve that, right? So a lot of people want to be the fastest sprinter in the world, right? And the Olympics is coming up, and but there's only going to be one. There's only going to be one. There's only going to be 10 in that final race. There's going to be thousands and thousands and thousands that are almost as good. They're half a second behind. They're not even going to make it into the Olympics. So are they lesser athletes? No, they're just not at that level at this point in time, right? So you keep going in that belief that, that's what I want. And, and if I'm the best in Australia, or if I'm the best in Queensland or New South Wales, or the best in my club, well, great, celebrate that.
Yeah, it's an achievement, and you have to celebrate those milestones and achievements as they happen. Otherwise, it feels like you haven't achieved anything when you really have.
And it doesn't mean that you give up on your goals and your ambitions. I mean, I'm a mad keen golfer, but my ambition far outweighs my ability. Right?
Hungarian Tiger Woods.
Yeah, my son-in-law is a professional golfer, and he is an athlete and an elite athlete. But the difference between him and Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy and the elites of that is almost nothing. It's almost nothing. It's 3 games away from success. That's the way we look at it. And that's when you're a small business, you're one phone call away from success.
Yeah, one big deal can land in whether it's been 8 years in the making because you met someone at some event at some time, long time ago, and then they gave you to someone else.
Yeah.
Or you get that random phone call or email that is out of the blue, which does happen from time to time.
Yeah. Movement is the key, so continually moving forward, having, activity and procrastination, perfection, is the killer.
Yeah,
so if everything
perfection's probably worse than the procrastination, I think.
Yeah. So
you'll just keep doing something until it's perfect, and it just never. There's no such thing as perfect.
Yeah, and that's one of my dark sides. Right. So and goes back to we don't have time to talk about the psychological damage that I had as a public speaker when I was 25 or something like that. But that it's a part of I always over prepare. Right. So the advantage of that is when I go and work with businesses, the entrepreneur spirit of the business owner is they're all out there, making hay and creating opportunities. They bring those opportunities back to the farm, so to speak, and then everybody goes, we haven't even got the last idea that you had bedded down, and you're bringing in another one, right? So I operate, my whole career has been around being sort of that general manager or bridge between the staff and the owners or the managing directors of the world, and bringing some sanity to that, right? So there's that tension there. So the tension is we need to move forward, and then there's the tension of we need to get things right. And so I fill in that gap because I can see both sides of it, right? So I'm playing the devil's advocate on both sides, and then at some point in time we go, no, pull the trigger, right? We can't keep iterating this thing because there's no point in that. There's no point in making it 3% better, right? Because we're not going to get the goal.
That third party view on things that they may not see because they're in the weeds, so to speak.
Yeah.
So saying that you over prepare, I sort of got that. Now you mentioned that you listened to a few episodes before you got on, just to understand what the style and how we do things.
Yep.
I'm the opposite. I wing everything. So before we jumped on, I just rechecked your profile. I'm like, all right, what do you do again? Because I couldn't remember.
Yep.
Got an idea, and all right, let's have the conversation then. And then I really don't prepare enough on things.
Yep. And
but that's just different styles of doing things.
So a friend of mine was talking. He was talking about. He was complaining about. He's in the Philippines. He's a software developer, and he was complaining about he doesn't spend enough time doing one particular thing, right? Because he says I need to change that. I go, no, you don't. No, you don't. You just need to be aware of it, right? But what you can be aware of it, and if it's not going to serve you going forward, sure, you need to work on it. But it's almost counterintuitive to the statement that I made before, about pushing envelopes and getting outside of your comfort zone, right?
Yep.
It's about awareness. It's about awareness and not being unhappy with the situation that you're in, but moving forward to a particular point. So the fact that you don't prepare for these types of conversation gives it the flexibility to go wherever it needs to go.
Yes,
right?
And that's how I positioned it.
Yeah. And I've got a podcast that I'm about to relaunch, right? And that's my style. People go, "What are we going to talk about?" I go, "I don't know." Because that's
Wherever it goes,
that's the beauty of it, allowing those creative juices in that environment. Now, if I was to say that, to people and we're designing a workflow for a manufacturing company, right? I'm in a different hat, right? I said we can't wing this, right? We can't win this.
It doesn't have flexibility.
It doesn't
have. Yeah.
So it's adapting the situation and being happy with what. So I'm always keen to have people who are counter to your position making decisions, right? So in a corporate sense, right? So you would have one person who's really strict and one person who's really open or flexible. You bring those together and you usually find some sort of common ground.
There's two things there. So my business partner and I, we're very different. So that we do balance each other out that way. But then there's times where we're going around in circles talking about the same thing with different words, which you've probably seen a lot.
Yeah. But and that's okay. I mean, so this is again, this is what we're always wanting an answer. At the end of this meeting, we have to have an answer. What Papua New Guinea taught me was there's this Melanesian approach to life. Okay, and it's the village life. And in the village, decisions aren't made immediately. So you would have what we call a huddle or a group conversation.
Yep.
The chief would be sitting in there. There would be elders, typically elders, not younger people, but that's changing. And there'd be a conversation around something, right? And then the chief would go, right, okay. But very rarely is there a decision that's made in the first instance. So then you come back and, there's a whole bunch of conversations happen. People come back, different views are formed, have another conversation. That might happen 2 or 3 times, right? Mm-hmm. And then the chief goes, okay, fine, now we make a decision. What we in the West are frustrated with in that is that you're procrastinating, you're not making decisions. No, they're just collecting a lot more information where we might just, wing it in that situation, right?
Jump too fast.
Jump too fast. Now, that's just cultural, right? So what I had to do was I had to understand that difference in the decision-making process that my staff had grown up with. And if I forced my decision-making process onto them, we'd have this negative tension. They'd feel stressed because they feel like they're being forced into making decisions. I'd feel stressed because we're not getting, we're not forcing. So we used to talk about that, acknowledge that, we're in the business village now or the corporate village. Your thinking I need to help you to change that mindset so that you can have a little bit more mental gymnastics and make quicker decisions. Here's how you can do that. Here's some thoughts, processes, go experiment with it. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, and then come back and then, you'll get comfortable with this particular approach. You can't use it in the village. You can only use it in this village, right? And so that's really difficult, so for getting people to have 2 different persona in 2 different environments.
Yep.
And so that taught me, a lot about communication and creating safe environments for people to react in. I don't think without that experience, I don't think I'd be the person that I am today and be able to give the advice that I give today, because I would have been in the white privileged Australian ecosystem, right? And working with, enlightened and, self-aware and all of those things in this ecosystem, right? But it's in this ecosystem. I think the value I bring is that I've had this other experience and I can see how it's got benefits. to it, and that's what I'm trying to get people to think about is think differently, think creatively, think differently, and that's going to be a massive issue for businesses of my generation, or who are run by my generation, over the next 3 to 5 years, because the boomers are at that point where they are looking at selling, and they're selling a boomer business that is structured around a boomer owner, and the person who's going to buy it is not interested in that lifestyle. That the business needs, and I talk about it, it's like if your business was a product, right? Who's the avatar that you're going to sell your product to? Right, it's not you, right? You're not going to buy your own business, right? So that you're not able. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you could sell it to a boomer, right? Because they still had 15 years left. The boomers are not the buyers of businesses now. They're getting to that retirement stage. So what is your business? How can you construct a business that is appealing to not you, right? And this is the problem. For the last 30 years, management consultants have been saying to boomer-run business owners, you need to get out of the way, and the boomer is saying, no, I don't need to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm stoic. I work hard. I've been told that I need to work 24/7, sacrifice for my family and all the rest of it. And now what we're seeing is the consequence of that, right? So we're seeing relationships break down. We're seeing health issues. We're seeing a whole bunch of problems that are occurred. Not financial problems. They're never financial problems, right? They're all of these other things. And then it's like, oh, gee, if I had have known that, I would have made. No, you wouldn't have. Because for the last 30 years you've been told that, right? You just haven't made it. So now it's like, okay, well, now I do, right? Now the brick wall is heading my way. If I don't make that decision, I'm going to crash into that brick wall. So I need to get out of the driver's seat. I need to put somebody in the driver's seat who can take this business to a level where I am no longer the key to the business. And if I do that, it's a more valuable business to sell. Right? If I don't do that, that's okay too. Then just suck the blood out of that business for as long as you can. Invest in other assets that are going to get you to your retirement strategy, and then just leave. Right? That's another strategy, right? So and that way you don't have to worry about changing your mindset. Right? You just
it's just about really understanding what horizon you're going towards and what direction you want to go to make that decision.
Yep.
But I can understand how, with your experience and having that different viewpoints that you've had and over the years, is something that would be beneficial to help them change their mind, especially coming from a contemporary person, not another millennial or someone younger than them telling them what to do when they've already been in business for 30, 40 years. And they're like, what do you know? So I can see how that shift can happen to them. But again, it's up to them what they do, and then when you're going in there, you're just trying to understand, all right, what are your strengths? How do I communicate to you in the right way? And then how do I work with your staff and bridge that gap? So it all makes sense, and it's just understanding the culture and the strengths of the people.
Yeah. There is a phenomena that revolves around retirement strategy. So, my generation was employed people were forced to have superannuation. The superannuation guarantee. So the majority of people who are now retiring have got, I'm generalizing, right? So there are some people that don't have enough, but they've got enough to retire on, probably not to necessarily maintain the full lifestyle that they have, but it depends on, so there's this bell curve of people who have got nothing and people who've got too much, and then there's the middle, right? Mm-hmm. In the business community, where business owners have their own business, there are some that have been able to accumulate wealth outside of their business. And so those ones, their mindset is, okay, my business is worth $2 million or $3 million. If I spend a lot of energy and time, it's going to maintain that level because valuations are dropping because of the supply and demand factor. So the more businesses that come on for sale, the less you can actually command for it. 10 years ago, it was 3 times earnings. Now it's lucky to be 1, right? So you've got that pressure on it. And then, so those people go, you know what, I've got $5 million sitting out here in other assets. Okay, it goes from 3 to 2. I'm just not prepared to put the effort in, right? So I'll just let it run, and then I'll sell it at a discount. I can't help those people. Right, so their mindset is stuck. It's like, I'm not going to do anything. The ones who are in trouble have yet to actually appreciate that they're in trouble. Are the ones where the business is there. They're all in on their retirement strategy being the business, and they're the ones who then go, "Oh, the brick wall's coming." They're the ones I can help, because they're now going. They've got this itch that is getting pretty sore, and they need to itch it, right? They need to scratch the itch, right? And so it's like, well, but I don't know what to do. Right, okay. First thing you do is you get emotionally detached from the outcome, right? So it's no longer about, this is your baby, right? This is a baby that you want to leave some legacy with, or make an impact on the world, or but you need to detach yourself emotionally from that, and that's probably the biggest and hardest challenge. The rest of it is just what do you the mechanics then. So what needs to be worked on first, and then what resources do you have to be able to do that investment, and what's the return on investment going to be, and does that make sense? And if that all makes sense, great. Okay, well then here's the process. I've done it. I've been both in business, where I've run my own businesses and I've created these, and I've been general managers where I've taken over businesses with 120 plus staff, losing money within 3 months. I talk about we because it wasn't me. We turned this thing around, and I was playing 3 days a week in golf, doing what I love doing, which is building relationships with people, on the golf course, because you got them for 4-6 hours, right? So you build really strong relationships with those people, and they become clients, right? So that's my genius. I couldn't do it when I'm sitting in the office, so I know how to, so that again, it's like the business owner feels like they have to do everything. I was like, no, just what are you really good at? What do you love doing? Well, focus on that, right? We got you, right? We got you. You don't have to. You'll have all of the controls. We'll put all the mechanisms in place so that you can see what's going on, and we're going to have the meetings, and and you still have the final say on it, right? I'm not taking all of that away from you. But if you've never done this before, then hire somebody who's actually done it, right? And
go through, use their experience, understand how you do it, and then play to your strengths and not your weaknesses, because you'll never do the things you don't like as good as you do the things you do.
Yep.
That's what I've learned a long time ago.
Yeah. I mean, there's the thing, so focus on your strengths, and find somebody to support you whose their strength is your weakness.
Yep.
No point. Sorry. Yep.
Oh, no, I'll let you finish.
Oh, I was going to say, there's no point in improving your weakness, because then all you'll ever be is average.
Yeah, it's better to focus on the things that you do well and do them better.
Yep.
Because you'll do them better than most other people.
Yep.
So if anyone wants to learn more about you, and maybe there's someone that's listening that is at that point and needs to make that decision, and how can they reach out and find more about what you do?
2 places. LinkedIn is Steven Sandor, or Steve Sandor, Inspiring Business. I think is Business Improvement Strategist is the tagline on LinkedIn, but connect with me on LinkedIn. Let them know I'm being a little bit selective on who I connect with on LinkedIn, because I get smashed like everybody does, so
you responded to me, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, well, I looked at your profile, right? I went, this will be cool. This will be fun. And so, in the connection, don't just send a connection request, send a connect, with a message and say that you've heard me on this podcast. I'm more than happy to have conversations with you. My website is inspiringbusiness.net. no AU on it, just inspiringbusiness or one word.net. We've got resources. Don't judge me on the website. We are rejigging the website to have a lot more things. I've got a bunch of ebooks and resources that are available. Steve at inspiringbusiness.net gets you straight to me. Thanks for that.
Cool. And we'll not a problem. We'll put all those links in the notes as well and on socials when we share that with everyone.
Oh, thank you.
Once again, Steve, it's been a pleasure to speak to you, and thank you for today's episode.
You're welcome. Thanks it's been a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you.